All right, welcome everybody to this 3rd of December meeting of Te Puna Kōrero. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge the passing of John Seddon, who was the previous chief executive, in fact the first chief executive for Porirua, who was in his day a real mover and shaker and is responsible for a lot of the way that Porirua looks today. So a sad day for everyone. I'll move on now to the first item on the agenda, which is apologies. And we have everyone present. There are no apologies. In public forum, there have been no requests to speak to the meeting today. Are there any conflict of interest declarations for councillors? No. I'll move on to item 4, which is notifications of extraordinary business, and there are no such items to report. Then item 5, which is confirmation of the minutes of the Te Puna Kōrero meeting of the 25th of November. I'll move those to get them on the table, indicating a true and correct record, seconded by Councillor Hayward. Thank you. Does anyone wish to make any comments or notes of changes? I'm looking at no one in particular. Okay, I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. So that brings us to the reports for this meeting. And the first report is item 6.1, which is the Tetahi Bay Beach Community Safety Audit. I'm going to move that report, seconded by Councillor Duncan, and to get it onto the table. Look, I'm taking it as read, but I will ask, are you going to talk to it? Gosh, that's good. Do you want to give us a summary then? Very quickly. Alison, yeah.
It should be better.
Ah, that's it.
Morning, everyone. I will take the report as read. There's just a couple of notes that I wanted to go over. So there are 2 related but distinct pieces of work being discussed this morning. Firstly, the safety audit, which Mia and I are happy to answer questions on, which gathered feedback on safety through environmental design at the north and south ends of Tetahi Bay Beach. And the second is the transport bylaw review, which includes whether cars should be allowed on the beach, and that's the next agenda item today. I appreciate that there are crossovers, but if you have questions that are specifically about cars on the beach, monitoring and enforcement, and how that will work as a result of any possible changes, it would be great if you could save those questions for the next agenda item. As mentioned in the safety audit findings, I reiterate that the importance of the solutions, that they need to be appropriately sequenced and not done in isolation, and we just now need to work through some of those. The safety audit did, however, highlight some immediate actions, and I'll just give you a quick update on where we're at with some of those things. Police were involved in the audit and further discussions with them are taking place. Trimming back the vegetation at the north and south ends has been scheduled. A replacement park bench for the front of Bothamley Lane car park, that was the one that was quite rusty, has been ordered, and the damaged table at the South Beach Access Road playground will be repaired over summer. The Valley Street and South Beach Access Road toilets will be locked overnight starting next Friday night, and that will go through till the end of February at this stage. The Bay Drive toilet lighting was fixed immediately and toilet signage is being reviewed. A spotlight has been added to the outside of the South Beach Access Road toilets, pointing towards the car park to light that up a bit while we look at other options. And we're working on getting power supply to the Valley Street toilets so that lighting can be installed there, and that should be done before Christmas. Our street lighting contractors undertook a site visit last week with the lighting report recommendations, and today they're fixing lighting at the South Beach Access Road along the path that runs north from there And they'll also add some lighting to an existing lamppost that overlooks the playground down that end. They'll add more lighting along the Bay Drive diagonal car parks, and they'll cost up some of those other recommendations, and we'll report back on those. We just want to note that the regulatory signage needs to be standalone and conform to certain legislative requirements, so we can't get around the number of signs down there, but we can and we will review some of the educational and wayfinding signage down there. And we'll continue to engage with the community and stakeholders involved in the audit as we work through the solutions. So happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks very much, Alison. That's good. So I'll now open it up for questions, councillors. Councillor Duncan, then Councillor Hayward.
Thanks for that, Alison. The lighting over the playground there, is that was suggested to be sensor type lighting, was it?
It was suggested to have a shield over it. Daryl could probably talk to this, but I think that the team don't particularly like the shields because they can come off in the wind. That's quite a high wind zone down there, so it won't have a shield on it, but there are some other solutions. They'll either tilt it towards the playground or they'll make it sort of a deep dish type design, so they will take into account the glare aspects of it.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora, mātua hia mana. Thank you. Question for officers. In advance, thank you again for the report. And I know that there's a tremendous amount of work that's been done in engagement with the community, and it's nice to see it reflected in the document. My pātai is about CCTV. I've tried to read this 3 times, and apart from the reference of saying going out to an external reference person to talk about advice on CCTV, I can't actually see any other commentary in the document about that. Now, yesterday I went up to Baxter's Rise, though some of the councillors will know the space. It's an Aotea. You go up there, you park there, and you can look over and you can see a wonderful vista of Tetahi Bay in the distance. It's a fantastic sight. You should go up there if you can. But up there, they have a camera and a sign that says, warning, surveillance in area. Now, during the long-term plan, council officers said that that was a fake CCTV camera and it was going to be removed. It is still there tomorrow. Yesterday. I don't expect that it's going to get removed today, and I don't expect it's going to get removed tomorrow. So can I get a clear direction from officers about CCTV cameras being at Tetahi Bay Beach, or safety cameras, or whatever you want to call them? Kia ora.
I just wonder whether we need to comment now. You can comment, but would this not be taken account of in the amendment to be moved in the next item by Mayor Baker regarding a long-term plan, a master plan for Tetahi Bay Beach, which would take that into account, Councillor Hayward?
May I speak to that? I need to point out that I had made a reference to this issue early in the process and was given an assurance by officers that they were going to seek external advice.
Sure.
And yet the absence, by my reading of it, was not there. Therefore, I seek a clarification
Well,
right now.
Let's get the answer. Fine.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Look, I'm happy to talk to that. It's not off the table as something we might recommend. The feedback on CCTV wasn't prevalent in our findings, which is probably why we've been a bit light on it. We have talked to an external about it, but there's a couple of things that play into that whole CCTV thing, and they will come out in the next steps. And that's really around the sequencing is the main one. Currently, the lighting in the hotspots down there it's not adequate to support CCTV. So if we put it in now, it just wouldn't be a good use of ratepayer money because the issues that happen overnight were just not enough lighting down there to support it. But we will review that as part of our sequencing, and we still will be in touch with our external that's helping us around that, but he's given us some pretty good advice on that too. So look, I can't comment on the Baxter's Rise. I can go and find out about that. But yeah, like I say, around CCTV at Tetahi Bay, it's not off the table as something we'll recommend. We'll just report back on that.
Thanks. Councillor Ford.
Do you have something first? I'm just going to ask direct about that. Is that okay? Just to get clarification, Alison, because Councillor Hayward, with his comments around the Baxter's Rise CCTV camera, can you just clarify it's my understanding that is a personal private camera that was put up. The residents had put it up personally. It was not funded out of ratepayers' money. So can you just clarify that for me, please?
I think you are right, Councillor Ford, but I would have to check on that. But I know one of the residents up there had a camera on their house or on a pole outside their house or something. So I think there is a personal camera up there. I don't know about the one that councillor Hayward. Pardon? Yeah, that doesn't make much difference. I think people do things to our light poles without our permission. But I will check.
Often, yes. Yeah. Councillor Duncan, you have a...
Can I just follow up on that? Have we just blown their cover telling everybody that it's a fake camera?
Yes, I'm sure the thousands watching will take that into account. Yep. Councillors, are there any other questions that we have regarding the Tetahi Bay Beach Community Safety Audit?
Can I just make one other comment? Tetahi Bay School rang me to say what a fantastic report it was, and they were really happy with what you'd produced. Thanks.
So, well done, officers. Thank you. Okay, that being said, I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. So that moves us to item 6.2, which is the deliberations report regarding the proposed transport bylaw. Now, I'm going to move this report to get it onto the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ford. And so that's open for discussion. So I would now like to, and I just want you to also note, which you'll see, that minor changes have been made to the bylaw schedules. And you have these in diligent and also in front of you on the desk, as I understand it. You'll see them. You have it, Mayor Baker? Anyway, I'm now going to invite Mayor Baker to move her amendment.
Thank you. I have two. So
Do we have a seconder to your amendment?
thank you. We do.
Councillor Harpy, thank you.
The first one is agree to recommend that the council prepare a master plan for Tetahi Bay Beach and the surrounds, which integrates safety, access and parking concerns raised through the consultation of the Transport Bylaw and Safety Audit, with any funding implications to inform the 2024-54 long-term plan. And the second one is to agree to recommend that the council amend Schedule F to designate the western side of Harriet Drive, which is both sides of Harriet Drive there. It should be both sides of Harriet Drive, where the arrows are, both sides of that road. Yeah. As standard long-term parking.
Right. I'm now going to open that for discussion.
Can I speak to it then?
I was
Okay.
going to ask you to speak to
Sorry.
it as the first person too.
Thank you. So for the Harriet Drive parking, as much as people are not wanting us to put in paid parking, I didn't want to have everyone who parks on Bunnings Bank have to go out and put money in their meters every 2 hours, because that's the closest long-term parking for people in the city. So the fact that they could park there all day at the, I think it was $5 cost, is a lot easier than trying to move your cars all the time, which is what's happening. And I think they do need some certainty for long-term parking, so that was the reason behind that. And for my second one for Tetahi Bay Beach, if we end up moving cars off beaches, we will have to look at some kind of parking in Tetahi Bay, which would mean we would need to spend more money in different areas there to put in parking or redo parking bays. So that's why I want to make sure we've got some money tagged in the future, obviously along with cameras or whatever, in the next plan. So that's where I was coming from.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. So does anyone else wish to speak to the amendments? Councillor Trillam?
Kia ora, thank you. Just a very quick question in relation to the Harriet Drive amendment. Just wanted to clarify, in Schedule F, I think it's referred to as standard long-term parking, and then under J is standard on-street. Is that the same thing? Is that an error?
Do we have a...
Okay, cool. So there's no issues with it being labelled as different?
you want to come up to the, because nobody can hear who happen to be listening, yeah.
And can you confirm it is both sides of that road?
Yes, so the eastern side of Harriet Drive. That's correct. So the eastern side of Harriet Drive is already scheduled as standard all-day parking, and the western side had a mixture of P120 and free or unrestricted parking. So those 3 blocks on the western side we can change to standard all-day parking. That is $5 a day with the first hour free. And in Schedule F, they're referred to, I won't be able to quote the exact wording to you, but it's paid parking with the conditions on the machine. And so the machine will have those conditions on them.
Yep, does that answer the question, Councillor Tron? Okay, so...
Can I just...
No. You can, after Councillor Sayuli, and then you, Councillor Morell.
Thank you. Just a question regarding the amendment. How does that impact on if today's, if we pass that, the whole transport bylaw, how does that impact on work to be done on the beach?
Were you talking about the amendment for the master plan?
Yeah, for the master plan. How does that impact on work getting done? Does it delay it more or?
No, so what it does is it puts money, we do the work, but this is if we end up doing cars off beaches, this gives us money to do more work later on.
Yeah. Puts it in context.
Technically.
That's, yeah. Councillor Morell, sorry, now.
I was just a little confused if it's $5 all day and the first hour's free. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a good point.
So if people choose to park there for less than all day, for 2 hours, 3 hours, it's $1 an hour with first hour free. So if you park there for 2 hours, it will cost you $1.
I'm confused now. But Councillor Hayward? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just check on the proposed amendment around Harriet Drive, because I'm speaking to that amendment, what the fiscal impact is of that change being made?
Good question. Do we have a...
Yes, we do. Bearing in mind these calculations were done yesterday, we think it is about an extra 30K per annum.
So it's more money, not...
More money, not less.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions people want to have about the 2 amendments that Councillor Baker... Mayor Baker moved. Yeah. Freudian slips. Nothing else, councillors? Yes. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hayward.
To the other motion regarding the incorporation into the long-term plan, there is nothing in that motion, though, that stops us as a council wanting to act earlier, and if costs are required that cannot be met within existing budgets, this can be incorporated into the annual plan. This motion does not prevent that from occurring, does it? Is that correct?
I don't think so. It wasn't intended to. No. No. All right, councillors. If we want to, is there any discussion on the rest of the recommendations that are in the report? No questions, Councillor Hayward. Okay. Sorry.
The motions first.
Sorry. Let's put the motions first as one. I'll do them separately. I'll go for the first, that is the master plan amendment. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. And then we'll move to 2, that amendment to Schedule F for the Harriet Drive long-term parking. All those in favour? Those against? Yeah, the amendment. However, if you... Yeah. No. Okay. All right. Carried. So, yeah, you could have voted on that, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so with those two amendments carried, let's move to the substantive motion. So, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the officers for preparing the materials and working through this arduous process. Democracy sometimes is, but I would indicate my support for the proposed bylaw again. I have given opportunity for the public to have their say, and they have used their words. Over 500 people have given their submissions. But there is no clear majority of views, just a range of views. So when it comes to safety on the beach, there's a temptation by some to point fingers at others, as if they have no responsibility of their own. Enjoying a shared space means we all have a shared responsibility. The police, as individuals, we have an expectation to follow the golden rule. Don't be a dick. And unfortunately, the thoughtlessness of a few individuals in breaking that rule creates harm, and if unchecked, it will get worse. We expect the police to create safer communities. I've already written to police asking them for an assurance to increase their presence around the beach. I'm disappointed with the efforts thus far. We also expect that central government resource the enforcement agencies, including the police, and I'm going to continue to raise this with the local MP. Yet, as elected representatives around this table, we also have a duty of care to ensure that those who want to use our community spaces can do so safely. I think about this when I reflect on this proposed bylaw. Someone once told me that out on the water in the bay, swimming, boating, surfing on a kayak, 99% of the time it's good. It's those 1% of occasions where the conditions are not safe. We don't bat an eyelid to take precautions and measures to mitigate the risk. This council funds the Tetahi-based Surf Lifesaving Club to help mitigate that risk. Why should that approach be any different when it comes to safety on the beach? I get the nostalgic value of cars on the beach, but anyone who's connected to Ngāti Toa knows that there is a history that exists far beyond that experience. And the reason I know that is that Te Raupraha didn't drive a Toyota Hilux or ride a dirt bike. If someone dies on the beach because of reckless behaviour, we get it at the sharp end. So I don't flinch when it comes to having a choice about making the beach safer. I am content that the staff have taken on board the concerns of boaties and the boat shed owners, who I think have a legit reason to access the beach with vehicles for specific reasons. I am, however, keen to see a far more progressive approach, and I would request that the bylaw sections relating to Tetahi Bay Beach be reviewed no longer than 3 years after implementation instead of 5. Finally, I've been pondering the views of many people in this process, and I want to thank those who gave verbal submissions. I have had people come and talk to me while walking Dalvanius on the beach, at the cafe, even to my house. Thanks, Steve. But I want to give space to Suzanne, who wrote to me and said the following. I'm going to quote this. What a terrible evening on Bay Beach. 8 motorcycles racing up and down the beach. Cars speeding down the full length of the beach. Cars with people hanging out the doors doing donuts. This is all in the last 2 hours. Rang 105. Yes, I did, and waited 10 minutes and still 18th in the queue. There is no stop sign. It was removed and dumped on the driveway down onto the beach several days ago. There is no respect for our beautiful beach, and the behaviour on the beach is the worst it has ever been. Makes me both mad and sad. I know Suzanne. She lives on Valor. She lives above the beach. She gets everything in terms of the sound and the noise and the activities on those beach. I knew her mother, her late mother. I know their connection to the bay. She's right to be mad and sad, and so am I. But we can do something about that, and that's why I'm supporting the motion. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Do any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Sayuli, do you want to? Yeah.
I do, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair. Hey, my thoughts regarding the bylaw. I support the bylaw, most of it, with the exception of 2.A, and I'll give you my reasoning. Actually, before I give my reasoning, just a question of the officers. The forecast for revenue with this implemented, with paid car parking implemented, and what is the forecast, and also what is the current income that we receive, revenue that we receive through fines and so forth? Sorry, I didn't let you know earlier, but
Do we have an answer for that? Oh, Joe.
I don't have it. It's the impact is 777,000. If we didn't do paid parking, which would mean our rate. So I don't have what we currently collect, but I've got the impact of the change, and our rate increase, which is 7.65, without paid parking, would go up to 8.42%.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Sayuli?
I don't have the actual detail of what our enforcement, but I can get it for you.
So I can tell you, in general, we, at the moment, the figures annually have been affected by the COVID implications, but at the moment it's been around 350,000 a year. Ordinarily, revenue per year, ordinarily it would be higher than that, around the 500,000-ish. But like I say, it's been lower because of the COVID impacts in the last 2 years, but that's the order of dollars.
And the forecast is 700,000? Is that what?
The additional forecast is over approximately 700,000 a year.
Annually?
Annually, yeah.
So that's $1 million over.
Yeah.
In all. Yeah.
Changed my thinking a little bit. My thoughts were, and I'll share my thoughts anyway while I'm at it. My reluctance in kind of supporting the paid car parking was based on that information, but the other reason too is that with what I read, the majority of our submitters were against it. Also, the business community were against it too, and I'm kind of mindful now that with TG coming into play, hopefully this year, you only got a month. That with TG coming to play, that it'll be more of a deterrent for our people to go, to go elsewhere, to shop and to take their business. And I worry about the impact that we have on our business, and during these difficult times, it kind of seems like we're adding another burden upon their livelihood. Another concern I have too is that we've consulted. I remember reading one of the submitters saying, what's the point of us kind of like consulting when I'm not going to listen anyway? And that kind of hit me. I thought, that's so true, and I know they don't know the background information on some of these decisions, but that kind of got to me as well regarding this. It's irreversible. If this decision is made and things turn to custard down the line, we can't, it's going to cost us again to kind of change it all over again. Whereas if we kind of carry on as status quo for now, and then if things, with TG opening and everything else, that it might, things might change later on, and then we could introduce it if need be. I'm not saying totally against it in the future. I'm just saying just for now. One of the arguments that they had that was in the paper is that there's less parking for actual customers who come into the city because of people who work here. Well, my argument against that is that the workers who will be here will end up paying for it, and so they'll occupy their whole space for the whole day. So no one will be coming into the city, or there would be no parks available. So that's my concern at the moment. I mean, still in the air at the moment. Now hearing that information kind of changes a little bit. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sayuli. Councillor Weehapi, and then Mayor Baker and Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. I'm going to speak very briefly on the cars on the beach and paid parking. So in regards to the cars on the beach, I actually do want to acknowledge those submitters who actually took the time, researched and came up with possible solutions to a decision if we were to decide that today. I particularly want to admire Alan Blake's submission from Living Streets, who had some great possible solutions to some of the issues, particularly around wheelchair accessibility, that could arise from this decision. I also think people have become really lazy, to be honest. You can actually park and walk to a beach. It's not unusual and it is not uncommon. Also, you can enjoy yourself without being in your car. You can sit on the beach. That's what it's for. And overall, it's the safety aspect for me. I have a lot of friends who live in Tetahi Bay, and I know a lot of people who live in Tetahi Bay who all have young children. And to them, safety is first. I understand it's not going to stop everyone and everything from being on the beach, but at least it would be a start. So obviously I am in favour of that. Paid parking. As one of the submitters said, there is actually no such thing as free parking. It is subsidised. And ratepayers have been asking for so long, when are we going to see incredible rate rises ease? And the answer is revenue. And it's as simple as that. So I will be voting in favour of paid parking as well.
Thank you, Councillor Weehapi. Mayor Baker.
Thank you. I actually agree with Councillor Hayward and Councillor Weehapi. For Tetahi Bay Beach, these people have just got to stop. They, as everyone says, they are ruining it for everybody. And like Councillor Hayward, I don't want to see someone die or a child get hit. There's been animals that are very close to it as well. I'd like us, obviously, in the long term in our safety audit, obviously to look at the mobility for our older people. We did have a lot of people submit on that as well, so we do have access issues for that, hence the reason I want to put more money aside later on, but we do need to look at that. But the motorbikes just have to stop. It's not just there. I know they're over in Bottomley Park and everywhere else, but it's not acceptable to have 8 or 9 motorbikes zooming along the beach. It is extremely dangerous. So I'm supporting it for that reason. The paid parking, yes, I heard the Chamber of Commerce. They sat in front of me and complained. The issue is we're going to put the parking out here. There's still an hour free, but the businesses will have people still coming. Most people are only there under an hour if they're going to the local businesses to pick up food. The paid parking up on Harriet gives people the certainty they can actually go there and park. Eventually, we could lose our paid parking across the road where we have, the possibility of a new building at some time. So we still need to have some kind of paid parking. And I'm hoping that people will either start to carpool or use alternative transport, which is what the government is trying to push everybody to do, to get on public transport. I know a lot of people come from out of the area or in suburbs where there's not, but maybe they could carpool and just then one of them park in a suburb somewhere and come down in one car. So you're splitting that cost of $5. But I stand by this one, so thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, I too would echo the sentiments of Councillor Hayward on when we're discussing the beach. Sums it up nicely there, and Kylie as well. But there is one point that worried me. It's on page 72, item 8, when we talk about the beach. Note that the Mayor has made exercise powers under the Local Government Act to temporarily prohibit vehicle access until the bylaw comes into place. Would that mean that boaties wouldn't have access as well, if that were the case?
Officers.
Through the Chair. So we provided this option in the interest of getting vehicles off the beach over Christmas and New Year's period sooner rather than later, noting that there's a 14-day recommendation that has to be, 14-day notice period for resolutions to have effect. We would have to work through that. So during lockdown, we closed the gates to the beach. Some of the boat shed owners already have keys, and so there are some issues we would need to work through. But in effect, I think that the answer is yes, there would be problems for people getting down there with boats if the gate was shut.
Councillor Duncan, you want to make a...
No, look, that worries me. There was, and so we get on to paid parking then, and I noticed a whole lot of people had their names and addresses redacted, and that suggested to me that those percentage of people were people outside of town, particularly from MB perhaps and MOE. I think maybe here the government could put their money where their mouth is and provide a bus for all those people who want to get to work there. Maybe they could look at doing something like that to it. But I think maybe we should have couched the question, would you rather paid parking or another percentage on your rates each year? And if we'd said that, then people would have seen that the plight we have here.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Mayor Baker, you want to make it?
I just want to reply to Councillor Duncan. The Mayor wouldn't sign anything if the people launching their boats couldn't get onto the beach, because most of them use it. It's no point. They can't go all the way to Oniparo. Well, they can, but it's really expensive to run your boat the whole way around to get there. So I can assure you I won't sign it if that's the case.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Ford?
Yeah. Just a quick one. So I agree with most comments that have been said around the table. I just want to reiterate what Councillor Hayward was alluding to around any bylaw that we put into place here at Council. It is worth nothing if we can't even enforce it. Now, the police have got a big role to play when it comes to enforcing these bylaws around especially around the beach. So perhaps, I mean, you've already said that you've been talking, perhaps it needs to come from somebody a little bit more with, so like the mayor or something. Yes, I just wanted to speak in support of Councillor Hayward and that stuff. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Does anyone else want to? Taku?
Yeah, I do support that. It's all about safety on the beach. The beach is a taonga. It's a taonga for the city. It's a benefit for all of the community to go and enjoy. I mean, a couple of times I've been down there early this year, kids are driven onto the beach with their families, and the first thing they do is open that door and head to that water. Regardless, they don't look left or right. And a couple of times I've nearly seen a couple of them get collected. So primary for me is the safety matter.
Thank you, Taku.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All I have at this table is my word, and I've given my word to a specific group of people who have spoken to me about this. Now, my mind was made up when I walked through these doors, but hearing our kaumātua speak has changed that. The beach, the words that keep getting thrown to me was, it's uniquely Porirua. There's no other beaches you can drive on and enjoy the view, enjoy lunch. So thank you, Taku, for changing my mind against my will. If I go against Taku, I go against a lot of people. So I'm going to go with, I agree with Taku on that point. In regards to paid parking, I too am also one of the people who park in Porirua. And I have been stopped in my tracks while on my 5K run at lunchtime. And people have been telling me their concerns about the paid parking. So today I'm going to vote against the paid parking, and because I gave this group of people my word that I'll go against it. We are the people that move our cars every half an hour when the parking warden comes through. I agree with what Whawhoi said. In my line of work, a lot of people are struggling already when they walk through our doors, and those are the people that are going to have to pay these things as well. So it's going to be at a cost to them. So for that reason, I'll be voting against paid parking and with cars off the beach.
Thanks, Councillor Ngalu. Councillor Morell.
Yeah, I just want to make the comment. I mean, I should, as a business person, I do sympathise with the Chamber of Commerce, but the reality of it is, it's spreading the cost to those in the city in terms of contributing to the city. I think the thing that gets me constantly is this move to try and keep cars out of the city centre. The topography of our country and our city, if you're living at the top end of Plimmerton, and there are elderly people who live in the top end of Plimmerton, or if you live right up the top of the back blocks of Pawatahanui, or if you live in the in parts of Whitby, you have to have a car. You're always going to have a car, because public transport, you cannot expect somebody who's in their 60s and 70s to get on a bus, walk down to a bus stop, and then walk a couple of miles to the bus stop, then come down to the city centre, buy their groceries, get back on a bus, go back to the community and walk 2 kilometres up the road. So we're always going to have cars, and so we have to accommodate that. And this idea of providing is a stupid thing in Auckland, which they're doing about the bus lanes and putting a carbon tax on to keep cars out. We're never going to keep cars out. Public transport will never ever be able to replace the vehicle. So we have to continuously remember that. We do have to provide car parking, and we have to provide for the future and forever, because that's the reality of where we're going. As far as the beach is concerned, my only concern about that is I certainly do want it to be, prohibited for motorcycles, but it's the enforcement is the issue. And so we do have to, I mean, if you look at the beaches around New Zealand, there's very few beaches around New Zealand that you actually drive on. You know, so the people of Tetahi Bay, or those who are advocating for it, are really living in a land of which is not now reality. So I'm for it, definitely for it, but it's the enforcement which is going to be the issue, because those motorbikes, the society we've got today, they just put their fingers in the air, and unless someone is there to enforce it, that is going to be the challenge. But I'm fully supportive of it.
Thank you, Councillor Morell. Look, are there any councillors, I will come to you in a second, any councillors who haven't spoken who wish to say something? No, that's fine. I'm going to allow two more. So Councillor Duncan, just quickly,
I just want to clarify, the Mayor said the first hour free. I thought it was the first half hour free.
Can we be clear about this?
Yes, so we've got two categories of parking, premium and standard.
Yeah.
Premium in Hagley Street, Cobham Court, where the first half hour is free, and standard in the surrounding streets where the first hour is free.
Yes, thank you. And Councillor Sewell.
I know it's not going to make any difference, but in terms of the submitters, I noticed that the majority of submitters came from Tirae Bay and Canis Creek. So Tirae Bay obviously were submitting for the beach, and the Canis Creek and Ascot Park, I think, was the next one. So obviously they were submitting regarding the city centre, who use the city centre more because in other regions of the city, they have the facilities in their local shopping areas, whereas those areas don't. So when they're coming here, we're kind of like impacting on the lower socioeconomic group in our city, and that's why. That's the last thing I know. It's going to pass anyway, regardless. But my question is regarding the education after it's all been said and done. Is there work that's been done regarding how it's going to be communicated to our elderly and also to our English second language?
Good question. Thank you. Do we have a...
I have an answer that I hope is satisfactory. So during the first month of implementation, we'll be handing out warnings rather than infringements in the first instance. So the technology allows us to know whether or not a warning has been handed out to a number plate, so we can hand out warnings in the first instance. We're working with our events crew to have people out actually in the car park to assist people using the parking machines, and to explain to them that even for half an hour free, you still need to register on the parking machine. Does that help?
So, yeah, I think the message has been made to officers. So, look, I said only two. Go on, Councillor Wehapi, I'll let you.
Thank you, because I forgot it. I forgot to say this. People were saying that, there are people out of the city who won't come and shop here. Let's be honest here. Most people come here to shop at the mall, where the majority of the shops are at the mall. There are 4 car parking places, buildings, whatever you want to call them, levels, for that mall. They're not going to be out of a car park or have to pay to go shopping at the mall. I just want to say that.
Okay, right. So I think that what I would like to do is to thank councillors for their comments, and a note to submitters, because that question has been asked. Yeah, we do listen. In fact, we listen pretty intently. But at the end of the day, we have to make some hard decisions, and that's what we're about around the table. So I'm personally, I support the recommendations, but I'm now going to put them. But what I'm going to do is to allow those around public parking, I'm going to vote in 2 tranches, ask for a vote in 2 tranches on the substantive motion. So in this first part, I want to vote on 2A and 5, which is now there are no other clauses that relate to, this is paid parking. So that's 2A, which is to change to paid parking areas, all right? And 5, which are the parking fees. So I'm going to put 2A and 5, all right, first. So all those in favour? Those against? Carried. Do you want your names noted? Thank you very much. And secondly, I'm going to put the rest of the recommendations, which is 1, 2B, 2E, 3, 4, and 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 on the other page, just to be comprehensive. So I'll now put the rest of the motions. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much, councillors, and Taku, for that discussion. All right, let's move to item 6.3. Thank you very much, officers, for that, which is declaring and classifying land as a reserve at Kenepuru Drive. I think we've talked about this before. I'll move the paper to get it onto the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Move the motion. Yeah, Councillor Ford. Is there any discussion or questions that councillors have for officers? Otherwise, I'm just going to take it as read. Matt. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, look, I'm just curious as to how we knew the submitter was Annie Smith when the only name on the paper that she put in was Smith.
What's that for?
This is the submissions for this particular proposal.
Oh, this one. Don't know. Maybe Matt does.
Through you, Mr. Chair, when I called the submitter, that was the name given to me.
There you go. There's always a simple explanation. Are there any other questions that councillors have of Matt? This seems a pretty straightforward decision to make after an exchange. So I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. That was pretty simple, Matt. That now moves us to the next item on the agenda, which is item 6.4. And this is, remember way back we had a request to investigate a graffiti wall in Porirua, and this is the result of that investigation. So I'll move it to get it onto the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Duncan. I'll take it as read, and you can answer any questions come up and ask. Are there any questions that councillors have or comments? Mayor Baker.
I agree with what we're writing, but I also wonder whether we can, I should have done an amendment when I think about it, throw it back, because this was one submitter, but we've still got youth who are wanting to do this. I wondered if we could somehow throw this back to Pātaka, because if we actually had a wall in a space that was locked and they could only go in there at a set time, not inside the building, obviously. I'm not trying to put this inside a building, but a locked space. So I just want to throw that out there, because I think at some point we still need somewhere for them to do this. And we've had it. Yeah, well, that's the problem. We're trying to get it off fences. So I don't have the answer, but I appreciate the work that Alex has done on this. And I know we had trouble getting anything from Wellington. So, but Auckland were very helpful to him. So that was really good. But I'm just a little bit confused on the next step, whether we will have one, or officers, had we even thought about that?
I took that as a no. I thought it was a pretty clear-cut report, and having a space, a private space in Pātaka, for example, I would have thought, why would taggers go, or whatever you call, graffiti artists go in there? Sorry, the taggers wouldn't go in there. They just use the outside walls. Yeah. So why would graffiti artists go in there necessarily? I don't know, but I thought this was pretty clear cut, Are there any other comments by councillors regarding that? So Councillor Hayward, and then who else was next? Oh, Councillor Happy, sorry.
Kia ora mātua. I'm voting against the motion. And I've talked about this just before the meeting started with the Mayor, who I sympathise with her suggestions. It's not to take anything away from the thoroughness of the report or the work that's gone into that beforehand. And I want to thank all of those who had participated in that. I reflect on the long-term plan of which this came from, and that we had a range of submissions from rangatahi across the entirety of Porirua. This was the one that councillors, in effect, really supported. And I supported it on the basis that we were going to have it, because there are so many other things that haven't been provided for rangatahi that had been suggested as part of the long-term plan. I'm sure Councillor Wehapi would probably bring this up too. We still don't have a youth space up in Porirua East. We are waiting for that. So here's the signal that, for me, supporting this motion sends. Rangatahi, put in your submissions. In the end, we will kick for touch or do nothing. And is it Evan Black and Ian Foster? If we do that, we've got a whole bunch of number 10s you can have a look at for a selection in your teams. So that's why I'm voting against. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Wehapi. That's my decision.
Yeah, go with her. I want to hear what she's got to say.
But okay.
Hey, just a question. I did read it, but maybe I kind of missed because there were a few numbers in there. How much did it cost to do this report for this item? I mean, for the research? Didn't I? Okay, cool. Oh, yeah. I think for me, I'll be voting for this. It's, the recommendations there. It's been thoroughly researched. The people that know the youth have kind of spoken as well, and also know some of their behaviours. To be honest, if you provide them with a wall, regardless, they're going to do it anyway elsewhere. It's not going to make any slight difference. And I think for me too, we based it on one submitter, and like Councillor Hayward said, we need to encourage our young people. If more of them kind of came to the table, I think we could have had a good consideration for it. But I think for now, I don't think there's a need at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wehapi.
Thank you. I don't believe we need 200 submissions to realise that something like this is needed in our community. But I actually echo the Mayor and Councillor Hayward in regards to this. I think I respect that this has been done, and it's amazing, but we're overthinking it. They need a wall. It's as simple as that. So I'll be voting against it as well.
All right, Councillor Duncan.
Yes, for me it was a pretty clear-cut report, a really thorough report, and the one that spoke most loudly to me was the Waitangarua Action Group that have to clean up the graffiti around the city, and I think their point was stunning. It's just like diving off the bridge, isn't it? You're never going to stop them. It's the same sort of argument, really. You provide it for them, they won't be interested in that. It'll be where you can tag to get the reaction. So no, I think it was a great report and I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Trillon. Then Councillor Ford.
Kia ora, thank you. Yeah, I support a lot of the comments made by Councillor Hayward, and I think my concern here is I thought this was a good report, and it was good that we identified how there are some other things going on that would achieve some of the options we're looking for here in terms of providing options for creativity for our locals who want to engage in art. What I haven't seen in here is anything to say that we're doing something else to address the graffiti problem specifically. And I'd like to see some other options on that, I guess. And what I'm wondering is, at the moment, I'm leaning towards I'll probably vote against this, largely because of the reasons that Councillor Hayward had outlined. But I agree with what the Mayor was saying around how it would be good to potentially look at another option. And I wonder if we have the option here to let this paper lie currently and request that we have another option potentially at our next council meeting to look at the sort of example that the Mayor suggested. Could someone speak to that?
Yeah, you'd have to move it.
I'm happy to do that if there's support, but I was wondering if we could have potentially officer comment on that process.
I'm a little unclear what the other option is.
Yeah,
Are we looking
so
for a
am I.
wall behind a fence? I'm not sure we have one, but if that's the other option you're looking for, we can go out and have a look for a wall behind a fence. But other than that, we don't have the resource, I don't think, to support other options. So other options will come with costs. So I'm just a bit unclear what other options means in this regard.
So, Mayor Baker, what were
Yeah,
your
I was-
thoughts around this? It's just an idea, or is it?
Well, unfortunately, it was just an idea because we're doing all the lovely murals on our buildings here in the city centre. But I feel like there needs to be a space that actually they could do something on and then it gets painted over every month or whatever. But that's what I was thinking. But I don't want anything tagged in the city like the graffiti people were saying. So I'm with the others. We need something, but I haven't got the answer for it. So maybe it needs to wait for the annual plan and we actually ask a specific question about
I think that may
of
be
the
something.
youth, because I do.
Yeah. So
Well, it needs to be somewhere. We need to give our youth something, because we are just getting tagging. Alex is online. Alex, can you tell us with the one in Wellington, are they getting major tagging around their city, or is that one actually working? Or can you speak to the Auckland one?
Can't really. Hello. Can't really speak to the Wellington graffiti wall because they haven't actually contacted. Like they haven't gone back to me. I would have had a lot more information if they had. But in terms of the Auckland graffiti walls up there, they've said that there is very little spillage on their graffiti walls. So there's very little tagging that's on walls that are adjacent to the graffiti wall at the moment, and it's been pretty manageable because of their community that the graffiti wall is in. So a lot of people know that, hey, this graffiti wall is just for that and it's only in this space. But yeah, in regards to the previous comments of if this is just a definite no, my personal input is that it's a kind of no in terms of letting this hold out for a future look at, because I think this would be very good for our rangatahi here in Porirua, but currently I don't think we have the adequate resources or the space to actually put up a graffiti wall and maintain it.
thank you, Alex. Yeah, good comments. I'm of a mind now. If no one else wants to talk, well, Councillor Ford.
On the line to speak, but
You what?
it's okay.
You don't want to speak?
No,
Okay.
no. So I think tagging is always going to exist no matter what we do, whether we put up a wall or not, because people, dickheads, are always around and they want to amplify a message, right? So that is always going to exist, but we do need to work out a way to work alongside the WAG, that's who they are, the Waitangiroa Action Group, to try and nullify that issue. I'm going to vote this down, and it was because when the rangatahi did come through, yes, we had that one submission, but we had other rangatahi that were actually speaking to wanting this sort of platform. I think it's an opportunity for us to provide that platform for the graffiti artists to come and be and have their art on display. And as the Mayor said, and she spoke to it quite passionately when we went through the deliberations, that then, as you say, there are murals going up around the city, and then it would give them an opportunity to have that on display the next month or the next 3 months or however long it was. The next artist would then have an opportunity. Totally agree with Kylie. We don't need 100 submissions to come in and tell us that this is what is needed. We heard it in the voices of our rangatahi that came and made the submission. So the report is very thorough, but I think we do need to look for another option. And perhaps it could be at the Kapimana Netball Courts, where there is one already there. Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay. I mean, I'm disappointed that we didn't give this direction to officers right from the start. I mean, the recommendation is pretty clear, And I thought it was gone through very rationally, and the structure is great. And you know, we're being asked to agree with the recommendation that we don't have a graffiti wall. But what I'm hearing you say is that we will have a graffiti wall. So I'm going to be. I'm in favour of the motion, but...
Can I suggest we lie it on the table for 3 months, because we're going to a Christmas break, the staff can't do anything. I think they've heard us. Maybe that comes back at the end of March to the council meeting.
Fine. Councillor Morrell?
I mean, this sort of conversation, one submitter, this report says one submitter made the request. And we are bending over backwards for one submitter, you know, and we've got enough graffiti problems in the city without encouraging people to do it, and that's the reputation that our city has in some parts of the wider community. You know, for goodness sake, they've got avenues. They can, you know, but not, we shouldn't have it right here in the city. Well, we're trying to enhance the city, not make it look like this was one submitter. And we're going to all this expense, all this time for a report, and huge expense, and then it's ongoing maintenance. Who's going to monitor it? Who's going to do what? Mr. Chair, I believe you should put this motion in such, and we get it out of the road.
Point made, Councillor Morrell. Councillor Waddle, you want to...
Yeah, I understand your concerns, Ewan, around, you know, this is one submitter, and I echo what Jeff and Izzy had said around encouraging our rangatahi to submit. We had plenty of rangatahi submit, not necessarily on arts and culture, and this is an arts and cultural expression point that some people have made. And not everyone's into sport, and not everyone can communicate like we can around this table with our voices. And I think art is a valid expression of that, and I think we need to review that and see some kind of thing. Think outside the box for just a little bit. We're not asking for millions of dollars here. We think outside the box and offer something to our communities.
Look, I get the sentiment of the. Do you want one last thing, Joe?
I was just going to say I'd like to move that we let this lie on the table for 3 months.
Yeah, I agree, and if we can. You're moving that. Is there a seconder, Mayor Baker? I think we'll vote on that rather than the substantive motion. So the amendment.
Excuse me, Chair. Can we also just state that when it's going to come back in March?
In March.
2022.
2022. If we can add that.
3 February 2022.
3rd of February.
March, sorry.
3rd of March.
So are we going back to the officers say to come back with another recommendation? Is that what was that?
Yeah, we're going to let it lie on the table. They're going to come back with another. I'm not sure what. So what are they going to come back with? Yeah, well. So what are we asking officers? What's the amendment? That we let this lie on the table? Sorry?
It's a procedural motion.
Procedural motion?
Yep.
So what's the motion?
To allow
Okay, we can discuss outside the meeting. All right. I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Would you like that recorded, Councillor Morrell?
Of course.
Goes without saying.
No, I don't care.
He said, of course, record him. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your work on this, officers. And Alex, of course. I was counting him as an officer. All right, let's move to item 6.5, which is the proposed temporary road closure. Sorry? Oh, have I? Sorry. Yeah. 6.5 is the... Oh, yes, we have a slight mistake. It's all right. I was reading incorrectly. So, yes, let's go to item 6.5 still, but which happens to be the Interim Recovery Plan Monitoring Report. So I'm going to move that item to get it onto the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Yep, Councillor Waddell. Councillor Waddle. Yes. Right. I'm going to take it as read. I mean, there was a lot of information in these reports, and do councillors have any questions that they'd like to ask of Anne? No, Councillor Duncan.
Yep. Look, in the key findings, the economic impacts are unevenly felt with Maori, Pacific, women, young people and migrants disproportionately affected. Well, when you look at the corollary of that, that leaves one group that's doing all right, that's creaming it, and that's the white, aged boomers, if you like, male. So I'm creaming it. So could somebody let my bank manager know that that's what's happening? Because how do they arrive at these statistics? What do they use to do that?
It's a collection of data sets that indicates who the most vulnerable communities are when we have economic recessions and shocks in the country.
I look around the room here and I'd say most of the women in this room would be on a lot more money than I'm earning.
And so Councillor Duncan, all we're being asked to do is approve the report.
One other question.
Yep, one other question.
Infometrics, page 423. They say that our tourist spending is up 11%. Is that because we've got full occupancy in our motels?
Yeah, fair question. So where does that data come from? Do we know?
I'd have to check.
You'd have to check. Yeah, I mean, just so there is no answer at this stage. All right. Are there any other questions about this report? Otherwise, I'm now going to put the motion that we approve the recovery plan monitoring report. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for the report. A lot of work. And that moves us to item 6.6, which is the proposed temporary road closure.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to recuse myself from voting on this issue due to a potential conflict of interest.
Absolutely, Councillor Duncan. Sorry, you are. Councillor Hayward. Yeah. Oh, you're a Bay man, but
Mr. Chair, I thought with the view of all of the items being cancelled in the summer, that the relevance of this paper now.
It's a good point. Do we have an answer to that from
through the chair?
Yeah.
The paper was done about 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
but
before we
from
may.
a precautionary point of view, you don't actually have to exercise it, but I'd like you to pass it anyway. It's your power to approve these temporary road closures, and we'll just see what happens on the other side, when we get into 2023. But obviously with Waitangi Day, we've heard otherwise, but we don't know what is actually planned.
All right, I'm going to put the motion. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Mayor Baker. I'm taking it as read. Any questions? Councillor Duncan, you have a question?
Yeah, the Motor Karaka Point one interested me on page 447. We're told that the residents of Motor Karaka Point would still have access egress from their area despite the race that's going on through there. How would that work?
Thank you, Chair. It would be built into the traffic management plan, so I understand they'd have opportunities to get resident vehicles in and out of the area. You wouldn't just be able to drive out at your leisure. You would have to wait for the traffic management people to let you through.
All right, Councillor Sahuli.
Just a question. On Thursday, I think I went to an events management, meeting run by us, and in that meeting they said that that there's a new rule, and I don't know whether it's come to effect yet, that roads will be, your event organiser will have to let us know like 3 months in advance for roads to be closed for an event, and I'm saying this is kind of two. Is that coming yet?
Yeah, through the chair. So under legislation, if you want to temporarily close a road for an event, whether it's council officers, us doing it ourselves for Waitangi Day, or it's members of the public, we have to get it through to a council meeting. And our reports have to be prepared well in advance, as does the logic, and the officers in the roading department have to be available to look over it. So 3 months, that's a long lead time, perhaps 2 months, but we're telling people, we're warning people, anyone who's doing events, if you want a temporary road closure, it has to be formally approved at this council table and got into the schedule, and that can take a number of months. So that's what we're doing now, rather than trying to do it through the chief executive, which is not supposed to be happening unless it's really urgent.
Any other questions, councillors? I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'm now going to move that we move into public excluded. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Waddle. All those in favour?